Alright, one more. English apparently has a word for everything. Afrikaans has a word for everything and then some. I'll just put that there.
From my experience, most people who learn English later in their lives say one of three things about the language. English is a language of simple grammar. They say English is full of exceptions, and they say English has a word for everything.
Is that true? No, we don't.
While the first two comments are full of interesting implications, today we'll focus on the third, and in my opinion, the most underrated idea. So why the f does English have so many more words than the other major languages? The short answer is, it doesn't.
It kind of just borrows words from other languages. Pretty much. That, and because English became the dominant language, every time there's a new concept or invention, it basically gets an English name, which further expands the English lexicon. I imagine that's got a large part in how this has affected the English to be perceived as having such a vast vocabulary of words.
It's just unbelievably good at describing the situations that surround what are otherwise very common words.
Okay,
For the sake of comparison, we'll use throughout this video
literally me, boys. Literally me. But they're Afrikaans, but they're English.
5 major world languages across multiple linguistic families and subfamilies: English, Italian and Spanish, Hindi, Chinese, and Arabic. Of those, all 5 have between 200,000 and 300,000 different words, excluding obsolete and technical terms.
Obsolete terms. Democracy.
They also are all estimated to have between 30,000 and 40,000 colloquial words in circulation, with the average native speaker of each language being able to recognize around 40,000 words. These are averages, of course, and there is implied variation. Some very well-educated native English speakers can reach 70,000 passively recognized words, while toddlers and MMA promoters have both been
Bro does not like MMA.
known to reach 1,000 words. Now, a niche, nifty little rule called Zipf's law states that the frequency of a word's use is inversely proportional to its place in the comprehensive word count list of a language.
What?
That means if the most common word in a language is used at a certain frequency, the second most common will have 1/2 the frequency of the first.
That is pretty interesting. This is the first time I'm learning of Zipf's law. I had no idea this existed.
This pattern continues nicely to follow the curve f of I equals 1 over I.
Oh no, guys, I left math in high school. Please don't bring it back. Please, no. I can't. I'm not strong enough. I can't do this again.
The important bit here is that even among people who can recognize 40,000 words in a language with hundreds of thousands, 50% of regular speech involves only 100 different words, and 80% involves 1,000. The point is that English doesn't have more words, it has more colloquial words across a broader spectrum of linguistic origins, and its linguistic history pushes speakers to use more of those varied terms. The key lies in a linguistic phenomenon that quantifies the specificity of the environment that words are used within. It's called lexical collocation, but nobody really
remember that word, Chad. Lexical collocation. I'm going to ask you about it in your homework for today.
Cares about the name, and I'm only going to use it like 30 more times throughout the video.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Here's what it means. In this scene from Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy briefly notices the book Elizabeth is holding.
Morning Glory Milking Farm. Run while you can.
Of course, you must improve her mind by extensive reading.
Does he watch the book, spot the book, glance at the book, or does he peer at the book?
That was
He
glance.
most likely said that he glances at it, which is defined as to take a brief or hurried look. The word implies that the person glancing is only looking for a short time. But then, in this scene from Batman Begins, does the criminal glance at Batman?
He
Most
didn't see
people
him.
will intuitively tell you no, because the criminal wasn't the one who looked away. Batman exited his field of view. As such, what he did was glimpse the
I
Batman,
actually didn't see him.
defined as a momentary or partial view.
That is
This
true.
type of specificity in the niche used for each word extends across the whole language, and there are a plethora of examples. Here's a good one. This is walking.
Okay.
This is strolling. This is sauntering. Strutting.
I didn't actually know strutting was a word. Oh, but I definitely recognize this type of movement, though. This is like when when your daughter tells you that, hey, I'm bringing over a guy friend. This is how you walk towards the door when he arrives.
Striding, marching, hobbling, waddling, shuffling, trudging. This is hiking, wandering, pacing. This is plodding, trekking. You understand.
If I'm not mistaken, trekking isn't actually originally English. I'm pretty sure it originated from the Afrikaans voortrekkers who did the great trek across South Africa.
Now, I want to be fully clear with my non-native Anglophone audience. These are not rare synonyms. They're all words that the majority of native English speakers know and will understand in their specific context without fail. It isn't necessarily that any other use of the word sounds wrong, but there is one use that intuitively sounds most right, because each word conjures up a specific image in the mind.
I see. Okay.
I want to also be fully clear with my monolingual native Anglophone audience. This is an exceptionally rare quality among world languages.
We voyaged, then we traveled, then we journeyed, then viajamos luego, viajamos luego, viajamos luego.
But
I don't speak Spanish. I can just read Spanish.
why? Now, at this point, you're probably asking yourself why you haven't clicked off this video yet. Please allow me to make it even less interesting for you with some statistics and ancient linguistic history.
Oh no, guys, he's going to talk about per capita. It's actually over.
But don't worry, here's a split screen. Among the top 10,000 most commonly used words in English, about 40% are of Germanic origin, 40% of French origin,
French.
about 15% of Latin origin, and the rest are scattered across many languages. While this might give us
Spanish
one reason
fanboy
why there are
9.
so many synonyms, we need to dig deeper to find why they're so consistently localized. English's strict lexical collocations sit in the collective subconscious of speakers purely through repeated learned experience. It's almost as if each synonym is a piece of culture, and like any piece of culture, it's also a piece of history.
Ooh.
The Germanic languages originated from the hypothetical reconstructed mother language Proto-Indo-European, which was spread throughout much of
Pie. I also speak pie.
Eurasia by various Neolithic farming.
Pie is very yummy.
These peoples, called the Yamnaya by archaeologists, started migrating around 5,000 years ago from the steppes of what are now Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan. Today, over half of the world's population speaks a language derived from these people, ranging from Spanish in Chile to Hindi in India. Proto-Germanic split off from this root language around 1,000 years after the initial Yamnaya migrations, somewhere in what is now Denmark and northern Germany. The West Germanic branch, of which English is the major force, was
Based West Germany.
fully defined by the 1st century BCE. Old Saxon, the direct predecessor of Old English,
Have you guys ever actually tried to read Old English? Like, I think it was Beowulf, which is written in Old English. I actually, saw a manuscript and I tried to read it once. I could recognize one word, which was da. I couldn't read anything else. Absolutely no idea what was going on.
was the language the Romans encountered in their conquest of the British Isles.
They say no.
The region would continue to be dominated by the early Germanic English until arguably the most pivotal moment in the history of the language, William the Conqueror. In 1066, he led the Christian French kingdom of the Normans to conquer most of what is now southern England, bringing French to completely dominate government and aristocracy. While colloquial layman's speech was still mostly Germanic, centuries of institutionalized French seeped into the language of the region like the scent of the Parisian subway seeps into your...
I actually didn't know this, but this explains why there's so many different French words that has been derived into the English. My handle is Old English word. Most people don't know or use accursed. Really? I thought that was something that was a little bit more common. Oh, that's interesting to notice. One of my favorite words that not many people know is, I'm trying to think, is the word replenish. And most people think it means to fill again, but the original meaning of the word replenish means to fill. It only gained a secondary meaning, I think, in the 1800s. And then after that, it became a primary meaning, and then it was later dropped, and now it only means to fill again. But replenish actually used to mean to fill. Very interesting to notice. I believe it was around the 1600s, when it still had that as a primary meaning only, there is a difference between cursed and accursed. Yes, I imagine that would be the case.
Clothes. At the same time, like all of the contemporary Western world, the medieval Christian church used its magical powers of public execution to keep academia almost entirely in Latin.
Badonk.
My bad. By the time we get to 1300s Middle English, we can already begin to see a pattern of synonyms that exist broadly within the blossoming language and are deliberately kept in their specific context.
If I'm not mistaken, there's also a difference in pronunciation where you have cursed and then you have accursed. You actually pronounce the ed at the end.
By lines drawn on the borders of culture and social class. Today,
I could be wrong. It could just be accursed. But I'm fairly certain you're supposed to say you accursed it. You'll have to correct me on that one. I'm not actually sure.
we speak an English that has maintained about 95% of the Shakespeare-era lexicon, and the archaic cultural patterns he absorbed from the Middle Ages are still evident. To further elucidate,
we actually should go back to the Shakespeare in English. It was much better than the brain rot we have today. Like I'll give you a good example of why it was superior. Just take the these and the thous. Most people, they roll their eyes when they hear that. But back in those days, I think even actually it was a thing before his days, T was always singular and Y was always plural. So if I walked to the crowd and I said, ye come with me, everybody would get up and they'd follow me. But if I said, thy shall come with me, it's only a single person. It's a lot more Greek in that it's very specific. We should go back to those times.
how these patterns are visible in modern-day English. Here's Chris.
Mic check, mic check. For the small
Sup,
fraction of Tiberio's viewers that are employed, there are words with different etymological backgrounds to describe what they do. In colloquial discussion, especially for lower skilled roles, we mostly
Donald Trump.
use the Germanic term working. This extends to other everyday forms of toil, like working out or yard work. When the government or institutions refer to their occupation, or when it's discussed in a broader economic context, the job is French-derived labor, and the person doing the job is the French-derived employee. If the work involves more complex science-associated elements like machinery or computers, the worker is the Latin-derived operator. Through the niche uses of our words, we subconsciously make judgments on the quality and context of an event.
I actually didn't even realize that. Like, sure, I've used laborer, I've used, operator, I've used worker a lot, but I never really stopped to think of just how much subtlety there is amongst the different words. Even though they're all basically just synonyms, they denote slightly different contexts.
If I tell you I
pretty
went out to
interesting.
eat, it was likely a casual and low-cost meal. If I was to say I dined, you probably imagine an upscale establishment. The word
Sure.
ingest is instead exclusively reserved for medical and scientific contexts. And if I describe to you what I ingested, I'm most likely referring to a poisoning of some sort. Back to Tiberia.
What's good? It's me again. So, we can see how English inherited specific uses for words and how culture affected their specific niches. But the strength of the language as a concise descriptive tool goes deeper than just having words added to it. English also inherited a convenient word-forming tool from its original Germanic root
What
that
was it?
only adds to the strength of lexical collocation in the language.
Accursed, under a curse, used to express strong dislike or anger at someone or something. Very awesome. Alright, chat. Here's your homework for today. You gotta remember what accursed means. Primarily under a curse, secondary, strong dislike or anger.
Compound
Appreciate
words.
the English lessons.
All the Germanic languages exist.
Oh yeah, bro, compound words. I've actually heard some very scary German words that are basically just a string of regular words compounded into one, and it takes you 20 seconds just to say the whole thing. I'm like, nope. Nope. Curse, place a curse, placed under a cursed. Yeah, okay. And then dated informal use to express annoyance or irritation. I see.
Exhibit the phenomenon of joining two entire root words into an unambiguous single term. In English, it exists threefold. In noun form, like bedroom or handshake, or swamp or swamp ass. Adjective noun form, like blueprint or highway, and most interestingly, in verb particle form, like hangover or castaway.
Ooh.
Word compounding is not at all unique to the Germanic languages, by the way. Chinese actually uses it far more often And if someone speaks to you in Turkish for 10 minutes, they've probably said about 15 total words.
I actually need to fight you about this. Is it true?
The difference lies in the consistency. The main root of the compound can come first or second and can be conjugated or unconjugated. It is thus up to the listener to interpret based on context.
I
In
see.
Turkish, the compound words aren't exactly
Bro, what is this? Oh, bro, no. I need to get my Turkish Habibi mod on this, man. Well, what is this word? That is the Armageddon of pronunciation right there.
exactly single words. They are strings of several modified
From those whom we could not Americanize.
roots with conjugations functioning as prepositions that bind the compound word.
That's
The
huge.
respective subjectivity and complexity of the two
Let's see. The angel of death walks this accursed home. Her fate was determined as soon as she set foot in the cursed mansion. Oh, that's a brilliant use of a sentence to describe the different meanings of them. Nice.
languages are the main reason why they're considered among the most difficult major world languages to learn. In English, the main root is always the second one and always the unstressed syllable in the word. This makes it intuitive to understand what
Okay.
the first time you hear it, and literally gives any two root words like 50 times the specificity in one term. We see these compounds forming and spreading quickly even today because as long as one knows both roots and the very basic structure where the second is the main, it is immediately a hyperspecific word. Words like doom scrolling and rage baiting exist in brain rot lingo, brain rot being another compound. I mean, we're talking about words created and propagated by people who can barely read and write. They can even be fabricated with no real-world context and immediately understandable, like George Lucas's lightsaber or Tolkien's halfling. George Orwell
True.
invented
I actually never thought about those, but like, yeah, compound words are very intuitive and easy to understand. It's probably why you get so much brain rot that essentially just, spirals out into the open that everybody knows and understands and memes about it because it's very intuitive to understand. Very
24
interesting.
compound words just in his novel 1984, most famously doublespeak, thought crime, and unperson. Whether it's the first time
And I believe doublespeak and thought crime are still used, not often, but a lot in English language nowadays. Not so much the latter one, though.
someone tells you they're starstruck upon meeting you, or
You
whether
have
that's
swamp ass.
whether that same person tells you you have swamp ass, you're probably going to understand. So we see the layers that make up how English came to be this way. You take three competing languages, give them the ability to create specific words whenever they want, compound that for 1,000 years, and you find yourself with a language that has a word for every damn thing you can come up with.
Interesting. That was a very good and informative video, not gonna lie. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Pop this guy a like and a subscribe, boys. It was pretty cool. We'll toss him a sub. Hey, you never know. We could learn a lot more from this guy.